start with the next topic, which is a new topic. It is linear discriminant analysis. It is a new topic and it comes under the supervised learning. This is a supervised learning algorithm. This comes under that category. I have written the Bayes theorem formula only here. So initially, let us discuss the continuation of the Bayes formula, why we cannot apply the Bayes formula and why we need to go for an LDA technique instead. And then we'll see what this LDA can perform. Basically, this LDA can be used to perform two operations. One is to perform classification and another is to perform a dimensionality reduction. So in our course, what we are going to do is we are going to perform only classification based on LDA. And then for dimensionality reduction, we are going to discuss one more algorithm, that is principal component analysis. That is an unsupervised learning technique for both classification and dimensionality reduction as well. So both the techniques, LDA and PCA, both can be used for classification and dimensionality reduction. Okay. And LDA is supervised, PCA is unsupervised. Both can be used for the two operations. So what we are going to do is, we are going to do LDA for classification and PCA for dimensionality reduction. That is the way that it is given here. Okay, so let us do first LDA. And before going into that LDA, we have to discuss the earlier session on Bayes theorem, why we cannot use Bayes theorem or why Bayes theorem will fail when you have more number of features. So when we talk about features, so far in the linear regression or earlier, what we have done is we have used a straight line for separating objects of two classes, isn't it? Assume I have two classes and the objects are like this. I can separate it out using a linear separable line like this. So if I, for example, I have a length and then width, then based on the length and width, suppose if length is more and width is somewhat less, and if length is in the average and if width is more, then the objects will be grouped like this. I can draw a line, a linear separable line we call, to separate between the objects of two classes. And in case of the logistic regression also, we have seen a line which can separate the classes of two different objects. Now, when you say features, I think we have had an elaborate discussion on what is meant by feature earlier. Feature is something, a characteristic pattern or an attribute which will distinguish one class of object from the other. So earlier we have discussed based on the colors, apples and oranges, we can distinguish based on the color, though the shape will be more or less same. Size also will be more or less same. So color differentiates, and also the texture. If you take two categories of fishes, say salmon and sea bass, then based on their length and width, we can differentiate them. So there are... Yes, any doubts? So there are inherent features of the object that will help to distinguish the objects from each other or from multiple classes if you have. All right. So if I have salmon and sea bass, then I can take length and width If I take apples and oranges, then I will use the color or the texture. Any one will do, not necessarily both. Suppose if I have oranges or gooseberries and pepper, then I will use the size and color, of course. But in this case, the size one feature will do. So depending on the category, what we are going to classify, we can choose the features accordingly so that we can able to distinguish among them easily. There are reasons. Suppose if I cannot distinguish only based on the length, then I need to go for one more feature, width. Like for example, how in the case of apple and oranges, the size will be same, so I cannot use size as a feature. I have to go for color or texture. So that size is immaterial for me. So if I have more than one feature, then if the two features help me or facilitate for classification, then I will use two features. Suppose both the features are needed, are essential, but at the same time, if two features are not sufficient, then I go for one more feature. So third feature. Likewise, we can add more features. So my features that I use to extract for classification keeps increasing. So what happens is, if I have two features, then I will use a line to separate them. So this line, we call it as a linear separable line. Why we call it as line? Because we can draw a line only in a two dimension. You have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So in two dimensional coordinate system, we can draw a line. So if for the salmon and sea bass fishes, if you are drawing or if you are marking the fishes, say fish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the fishes, if I am noting their length and then the width, for this particular length, for this particular width, a fish can appear here, another fish appears here, likewise. Similarly, another category of fishes appears. So by looking at it or by doing certain algorithmic concepts, I can draw a line like this which can separate between both the classes. Now, if my number of features increase, then I cannot use a line. Instead, I have to go for a three-dimensional scenario instead of two dimension. So if I have length, width, say the weight of the fish also I take, then I need to use a three dimension x, y and z. So in that case, I will have a plane in a three dimension. Instead of a line, I will be using a plane to separate it. Okay, I need a plane to separate between the objects in a three dimension plane. Now, if I use four features, then the number of dimension increases. So, as and when the dimension increases, then I have to use a hyperplane to distinguish, not a simple plane which is having the equation of a plane ax plus by plus cz plus d equal to 0. That kind of an equation I cannot use when the number of features are more than 3. In that case, I have to use a hyperplane. So when my number of features are increasing, the dimension increases. So when we say dimension, what it means is each feature, when it is represented in a mathematical notation in a Cartesian coordinate system or any polar coordinate system or any coordinate system, if you represent, then each dimension, the x, y, z, takes one feature or one feature is mapped to one particular dimension. In x, I will mark the length. In y, I will mark the width. And then if I use third dimension, say the weight, then I will use the z. Likewise, my number of dimension keeps increasing. So if I use the length, width and weight, then the point will be in the third dimension for the length, width and then the weight. So third dimension. So I will have points in the feature space like this. So I will have a plane to distinguish. So when I increase the number of features, it becomes difficult or complex to select the good features that are responsible or that significantly contribute to the classification of objects. What happens when we increase the number of features is it actually becomes like this. Say for example, I have the features and then my classification accuracy. Okay. Initially, if I have more, if I have more, if I have less number of features, my accuracy will be more. Less in a sense, I'm referring to an optimum number of features, say 2 features or 3 features. So when I increase the number of features, the classification accuracy can gradually reduce. So I need to select the optimum number of features. How many features are good enough or sufficient for getting a high accuracy? Okay. So initially, if you are selecting so many features, then that is called feature selection. Then you are trying to do a classification, but it is giving low accuracy. So you have to eliminate certain features which are not required. So that elimination process of unwanted features are those features which are not relevant or not contributing to the classification accuracy. Then those features I have to remove. So that operation is called as dimensionality reduction. And then this concept, when you increase the number of features, if the accuracy reduces or if there is no improvement in the accuracy by adding more features, then that is called as a curse of dimensionality. It is called curse of dimensionality. That means adding more features will not improve my accuracy. It is only complicating my classification process. So we need to reduce the number of features. So if you are initially very particular in choosing the features, it is fine. We can arrive at an optimum features because already you have only 2 or 3 and those 3 you can take to distinguish like fishes or fruits or the pepper, lemon, gooseberry, etc. So that will be easy because I'm choosing only 1 or 2 features and I will get a straight line or maximum a plane to distinguish. That will be easier. Whereas if I increase the number of features, then the classification becomes a complex one. The accuracy will not be very high. It will be decreasing because my number of features increases, the dimensionality increase. So I cannot use a simple line or a plane. I have to go for a hyperplane. So formulating all that becomes a tedious process. So that is the idea why we need to go for a dimensionality reduction technique. And then what happens in a dimensionality reduction technique is the basically 2 things happens. One is which are the features that are not contributing to the classification will be eliminated or it will be pruned, cut off. Then among the existing features, they will be shown or plotted in a well separated manner so that classification becomes easier. So that is the idea like this. Okay. So when you have 2 features, there are certain statistical parameters that we need to understand. I think you know about covariance. In probability, you would have studied about covariance. That means, for example, we have the length and the width. Suppose I will describe 3 relationships. One is when length increases, if the width also increasing. When length increases, if the width also increasing, then this covariance is said to be positive. Okay. Suppose When the length is increasing, if the width is decreasing, then it will be like this. This is said to be a negative covariance. Another one is there will not be any change irrespective of increase or decrease. Both will be, I mean, both will not have any change. It will be like that. Okay. So now we are talking only about the trend between the variables, not about the magnitude. Why I am not telling any comment on the magnitude is, the reason is, here I have taken length and width, both can be measured using same units of measurement, like say centimeter or inches, it can be the same. Suppose if I am considering height and the weight, okay, so if height increases, will the weight of a person increase? If I'm trying to find a relationship between height and then the weight, then both are two different units of measurement. Okay, so I cannot talk about the magnitude. Height is measured in terms of feet and weight in terms of kilograms or pounds, whatever. So in that case, both are not of the same unit of measurement. So I can only talk about the trend between them, positive or negative or no change. Okay. So in that case, we cannot talk about the magnitude in terms of this covariance. Okay. So we can only talk about the positive covariance or negative covariance. Okay. So this covariance is important in terms of our analysis using the LDA or PCA. We are going to have a deeper understanding about this covariance only more in future. That means when variance is more, it is easy for the objects to get classified from each other into 2 or 3 classes. Okay, so the variance should be more. That is one thing that is required. And then this covariance is, if you take two features, the length and the width, if length is increasing and then if the width is decreasing, in this case, if length is increasing and if the width is to some extent, if it is like this, I can classify. Whereas if the width is increasing for its average length or for a moderate amount of length, then I can classify into another class. So in this case, it is having a kind of this kind of a trend. Okay. So it depends on how I am going to classify my objects based on certain features. If I have multiple features, okay, now I have chosen only length and width or length and the height and then the weight, then I can find the covariance between them easily. Suppose if I have 3 variables or 4 variables, then for each variable, I have to find the covariance. I think the covariance, all of you know mathematically. If you have 2 parameters, then you will have 4 elements. Covariance, say this is x and y. Covariance between x and x, that is covariance between x and y, like this. So in this covariance matrix, you will have only 2 cross 2 matrix. My x and y are the length and width or height and the weight. Suppose if I have more variables, okay, more variables like color, size, shape, etc., then my dimension of this covariance matrix also increases. So finding the trend between the different variables, when one increase, what will happen to the other? In that case, grouping between 2 classes based on the covariance becomes very complicated. Okay, so what we are going to do is, based on this covariance, we can actually limit to only less number of features for classification that comes under dimensionality reduction. And then how to use the features. Now in this case LDA, we are going to take an example of 2 features and then how to perform the classification. And also first let us discuss why we need to go for an LDA, and that is also basically using the probability only. It uses probability only, but then why can't we use the Bayes theorem classification? Why we need to go for a LDA, but still that is using a probability. When you say the classification, if I have 2 classes or 3 classes, or how many number of classes you want, that is fine. Suppose I am assuming 2 classes, say good or bad, then for the category good, if it is giving 65%, then for the bad, it will give me 35%. So to which class it is giving more percentage, then I assume that the object belongs to that category. Okay, so based on the probability value, we assign the object to that particular category. Now, here there is a total probability. That means you have many features. Based on that, you are going to categorize. So we'll take one example and then we'll discuss. I think all of you will be using soaps, variety of soaps. So we will take some examples of the soaps and then we'll discuss. A soap will have a weight and then color. A soap will have color, weight, and then say some people preferential score based on who is endorsing the advertisement for that soap. Maybe a score, I'm simply writing people preferential score, and then say the transparency of the soap, or I can have some shape, say oval shape or a circle shape or a rectangle shape, something like that. Okay, now these are my features of a soap. Okay, now I will be giving some values for this. The weight, say for example, the weight, I will, please mute yourself, all of you. So weight, I will give a value, say low, medium, and heavy. Okay. Color can be say white, green, red, something. And then people preferential score, say 1, 2, 3. And then shape may be circle, a oval, and a square. Now, for all this, I will be giving a numerical value. Low means 1, medium means 2, heavy means 3, white means 1, green means 2, red means 3, circle is 1, oval is 2, square is 3. So, if I take, now I have 4 features, 4 attributes of a soap. Now, I can form several combinations, isn't it? I can form and then color white and then score 1 and a circle. All this I can write as it is. Then low, this thing, color green, score 2 and then square, or low and then color and then this one, score 1 and then circle as the shape. I can have multiple. You have 4 means how many combinations, permutations, combinations you can make. So those many I can make, isn't it? Now, we are going to classify the soap as good or bad into these 2 categories. My I equal to good or bad. Okay, and these are my features. These are my features X. Okay. Now, suppose if I have 100 records, 100 records or a table with 100 details of for all this. Out of this 100, say 80 are good and 20 are bad. Okay. Now for this 80, I will have some combination of this, and for this 20, I will have some combinations of this. Okay. So now if I'm trying to apply the Bayes theorem formula here, okay, now probability of the category of the soap. Say, for example, I want to take what is the probability of a soap. Given a soap, what is the probability that it is good? Given the evidence, my X will be, let me take a heavy weight, or I should write like this, weight equal to heavy, then color equal to green, and then score equal to 2, and then shape equal to oval. Okay. So what is the probability of I? If I'm choosing good, then probability will be 80 by 100. 0.8 will be the probability. So my prior probability I know. P of I, the prior probability I know. I'm going to find the posterior probability. For that, I should multiply with the likelihood ratio. This is the likelihood ratio which I'm going to multiply. So to get the likelihood ratio, what I need to know, I have to know P of X of I. I want to know this first, isn't it? I want to know this first. Then only the denominator, let me see one by one. So, given that a soap is good, given the evidence a soap is good, what is the probability that the features are coming from all this? I should find, isn't it? Are you all following?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will just repeat once more. I want to find, given a soap, what is the probability that it is good, given the evidence that these are the features. For that, I should find, given the evidence that the soap is good, you are given a soap, I take a soap. Now, if you are given a soap, you can find its weight, you can find its color, you can find its shape, and you can find its people's preferential score. If the soap is given to you, you can find all this. Okay. And then what is the probability of that it is being asked here, or you should know this first. So given that it is a soap is good, what is the probability that it contains all these features? Now, if I have, I think you can calculate for 4 parameters, how many combinations, maybe that n factorial you can do, isn't it? So those many combinations of records, I can get it, isn't it? Now, there is a possibility that, there is a chance that for a soap to be good, all these need not be be there. There could be any other attribute or any other different combination of attributes that can contribute to a good soap. For example, people may not prefer a soap which is of a heavy weight. People may prefer if it is of a less weight or a medium weight. Okay, fine. So in that case, what happens is, out of all the 4 factorials, so suppose I am assuming some 100 records here. I have already assumed 100 records. In the 100 records, this combination of X, given that it is good, wouldn't have appeared at all in the list. Only if that is there, I can find out of, say for example, out of 100 records, 80 it is good. So in that 80, this combination is appearing how many times I should know. Only then I can substitute this in the numerator. Suppose out of this 80, this combination, given that it is good, if it is not appearing at all, then I cannot calculate the probability of that particular soap, whether it will be good or not, given these features. Okay, so when you have more features, I have chosen only 4 features. You can assume some more features. So when you have more features and large volume of data, then there is a possibility that if there are more combination of features, then all the combinations yielding to good, all the combinations yielding to bad, whether such things can exist or not, that question will arise. So if multiple features giving contributing to a good soap, then if that is not available, then you cannot use the Bayesian theorem to perform the classification whether it is good or bad. So that is the reason we are going for another approach called linear discriminant analysis, or PCA, a principal component analysis to perform the classification. I hope you all understood what I explained, why Bayes could not be used and why we have to use another technique. Yes.
Ma'am.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, Vishnu.
Yes, ma'am. In this one, so the given case, it is classified into good given these conditions are satisfied, no, ma'am. But there is no reference to the other part. Like you told about other combinations where the soap might be good, but like we are not considering that in this probability, no, ma'am. The main objective here.
We are not considering. It is not like a joint probability or dependent events. Actually, only these values are there in this. We will be looking at it. There is a possibility that with weight alone, given H, you will be having a good with the different combinations. But we are not looking at that. Only with all these combinations, whether is it a good soap. Only that probability, if you get, we can substitute there. But such things, if it doesn't arise in my list, if that is not given in the list, then we cannot use this Bayes theorem. That is the idea.
Ma'am, if it is not there in the list, it's basically lack of data, no, ma'am. It's not problem with the theorem, no.
Like, yeah, there is no problem with the theorem. Absolutely, there is no problem with the theorem. Absolutely no issues. Problem is, if you have multiple features, then it is not possible to have a combination of all features yielding to good and a combination of, see, for each feature you will have multiple values, isn't it? So yes, for each feature, all the values, if you are taking, similarly for all, if you find all the combinations, then if you have large set of data, then all the combinations of all the features may not be present for a soap to be good or bad. So in that case, given these features. If that particular x given I is not available, then you can't use the Bayes theorem. That is the idea. We can't apply Bayes theorem in this case. So when your number of features are more, then we have to go for an LDA or a PCA.
Yes, ma'am.
So this LDA uses the covariance only. And I think you all know the formula for covariance. And apart from covariance, there is another term called correlation. So covariance and correlation are related. But then there is a slight difference in the formula between covariance and correlation. Do you know that?
Correlation is dependent on the covariance, no, ma'am. I
Yes,
don't remember
yes.
the formula properly, but then covariance by sigma, something like that it comes.
Yeah, you are right only. You are right. I will write the formula for covariance. So covariance is the expectation of x minus x bar into y minus y bar. So you will have the two dimension means x in this case for x into x, this is x minus x bar whole square I can write. Similarly, y minus y bar whole square I can write. Then for this x and y, and for this y and x, you will get the values from this. And correlation, it is the numerator is the same, the covariance divided by sigma x into sigma y. So I can write correlation as sigma xy divided by sigma x into sigma y. Okay. So correlation is nothing but covariance divided by the variance of x and then the variance of y. Standard deviation. Sigma x and sigma y are standard deviations. So that is the correlation. So now for this LDA, we are going to use the covariance, and that is a procedure. It is a completely this linear algebra, this matrix based procedure only. So I will give one example, and then first I will give the formula and I will explain the formula. Okay. This is the formula for LDA. And the calculation is a bit tedious process. It will take even 40 minutes or 30 minutes to solve this. It is a very time consuming operation, but I will quickly explain to you first the formula, then I will show the calculation and I will explain. So first thing is, here I have written I. This I refers to the class. Suppose if I have good or bad, then this I value can be 1 and 2. Okay, this I value can be 1 and 2. Say if it is pass or fail. Okay, I1 means pass, I2 means fail. Okay, so given a set of data, suppose I am assuming 2 parameters. Okay, I assume 2 parameters. Say my feature 1 and feature 2. I have 2 features only. Let me assume like that. Okay. Here also one X is coming. So I will write it as, say, feature 1, feature 2. Okay. Say radius and then some curvature of some bolt or whatever. That is the example that I'm going to use. So 2 features are there. Okay. Now for these 2 features, you will be having values, and say I have some 7 elements, then out of 7 elements, 4 elements will be under the good category or pass category. Then the remaining 3 elements will be in the fail category. Okay. So 4 elements will be in category 1, 3 elements will be in category 2. Now for all the category 1, I will take, say I have elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you will have a 4 cross 2 and then 3 cross 2. So for all this, I will take a mean. Similarly, for this, I will take a mean. So mean of class 1 into covariance matrix inverse for the class 1, and then which element you want to find, it belongs to which class or not, that particular element. This K refers to element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Okay. K refers to kth element. Okay. That element transpose minus half into, once again, mean of the first class or second class and covariance inverse, and then the mean of this particular class or this class transpose plus the logarithmic value, the ln value of the probability of the class. Say there are 7 rows in this matrix, my feature elements, out of which 4 are pass and 3 are fail. Then 4 by 7 will be P of I, and then logarithmic value of P of I, the ln of P of I. Similarly, 3 by 7 of that will be P of I, and ln of 3 by 7 will be the value that I have to substitute here. So I will be calculating this for both F1 and F2. Okay, we need to calculate this for both F1 and F2. It will give a value, say 55.65 or 58.63, like this. Some value it will give, numerical value it will give. For the F1 class, if this formula is giving me 55, and for F2 class, if it is giving me 58, then whichever is value is higher, I will assume that the object belongs to that class. Okay. So if I substitute I as 1, then I will take the mean of the first class and covariance of the first, this I will be calculating. Covariance means it's all together. Then the probability of first class I will take, and I will substitute and calculating this. If I substitute I equal to 2, then for the second class, I'm finding the mean. And for the second class, I'm taking the probability, and the C inverse is common, whichever class you are going to find. So you will get a value here. So in both these cases, I will compare whichever is having a higher value to that particular class. I will assign the object. Okay. So this is the idea. So it is 11:35 now. I will take some 10 minutes extra, and then I will show from the worked out example directly. I will share my screen and then I will show. I have done the calculation and kept, but still it will take another half an hour or 40 minutes. So, and one more thing I would like to tell you is, um, we have received a pattern for evaluation from the principal's office yesterday. It is not like what we discussed earlier or what we followed last semester. We are going to have a different evaluation pattern for this semester as per his notice. I think you will get proper communication from your faculty advisor, but still I will just give a hint or an upfront one information. We will be having two periodical tests, T1 and T2, and both the tests will have Viva, online Viva in Teams, and then we will have continuous assessment and project, then finally the end semester. End semester also will have exam and Viva. So you will have Viva 3 times, T1, T2 and NSEM. Okay. So periodical test T1 and T2 weightage will be 10 each. So 5 marks for the exam and 5 marks for the Viva. So 20 marks. And then there are different combinations of the internal pattern that is being circulated. I will tell you what we are going to follow. Provided this has to be get approved from the class committee chair. So only when class committee chair approves this, I can confirm you. But we are planning to have 65:35, 65 for internal and 35 for the end semester. So out of 65, we will have two periodical tests. T1 and T2, each of 10 marks weightage. Then there is no midsem like last time. So both will have Viva and exam. So 5 for exam, 5 for Viva. So two periodical tests will be for 20 marks. Then continuous assessment. That means we will be having some quizzes and then project. So quizzes we will have for 15 marks, and then for project is for 30 marks. The project that you are going to do is for 30 marks, the team project. So 20 for the periodical test, 15 for quizzes and 30 for project. I think we can have two quizzes only. 7.5 each we can have for two quizzes, because already you are going to write two tests. So we can have two quizzes and then one project. Project will be evaluated at the last, and these two tests will be conducted centrally by the exam cell. So according to that date only we can follow. Quizzes we can do on our own at our convenient date, which we will let you know later. Okay. So this is what being informed for us. And there are other variations like 70, 30, 80, 20 and 60, 40 and all. But myself and Jyotsna ma'am, we have agreed to go for 65 and 35 so that there is a fair amount of contribution for project also. And quizzes, test, everything will have some contribution. So this is what we have decided. I will quickly share the screen and explain the procedure. Since this is a very complicated procedure, we may not give you this problem solving for LDA because this only will take 30 minutes or 40 minutes to solve. So, because the entire test duration itself is 1 hour. So even if somebody makes a small mistake in the first step, then the entire time will go and it will lead to a lot of pressure and stress for taking up the test. So, but you should know the procedure, and based on the formula and then whatever we have discussed so far, you may get questions from this topic. All right.
Yes, yes.
If it is a 2 hours regular periodical, like what you do in the regular way, then it is meaningful to give this question. I have shared the PPT in the class, and I think if I remember right, I have shared the link. If I have not shared, I will share this link once again in the PPT. So this is the numerical example. So there are two parameters, curvature and diameter, and the quality control result is passed or not passed. So this is the data that is given. Now, based on the data, we have to find the classification for a new data that is given, 2.81 and 5.46. These are the new data that is given. So this is the existing data or your history of data set. Now, one second. Okay, so given this new data, to which category this a bolt with this curvature and diameter, will it pass the quality check or not? That is the question. So given the two column data, we are calling it as X, and then the quality information pass or fail 1 and 2 is mentioned here. So totally there are 7 records. The first 4 records belong to the pass category. The last 3 records belong to the fail category. Now, what we have to do is we have to take the mean of the entire X, okay, that is called global mean, and then we have to take the mean for the first 4 elements only, first 4 rows, that means for category 1, and next once again for the category 2, the next 3 rows we have to take the mean. So mean for the pass category, mean for the fail category, and the global mean we have to take. So that is mentioned here. X1 is this set of rows, X2 is this set of rows. So mean 1 is for the pass category, mean 2 is for the fail category, and global mean is this. This is for all the 7 records. And mean corrected data means every element of this you will be subtracting from the global mean, 2.95 and then 2.88. That means 2.95 minus 2.88, 6.63 minus 5.676. So that way, if you do for this entire 4 rows, you will get this matrix. Similarly, 2.58 minus 2.88, 4.46 minus 5.676, you will get this matrix. Okay. So this is written as X1 naught and X2 naught. And then we have to find the covariance matrix. So for that, this matrix is transposed and multiplied with itself. divided by 4 here for the first class. And similarly, for the second class also, we have to do this matrix. We have to transpose and multiply with this divided by 3. You will get this matrix. Okay. And then we have to find the C. Like in the formula, as I have written earlier, you have a C inverse, isn't it? So we have to find the C matrix. So the formula for finding the C matrix is this one. What we have to do is 1 by 7 into group. There are two groups. First group pass, second group fail. 1 to 2 we have to find. For the first group, n will be 4. So it will be 4. And then C of I into this R comma S is basically coming from this covariance matrix only. So if you are doing it for the first group, it comes from this matrix. When you write a plus, I will only write for this portion and I will explain on the board. Okay, this portion I will write and explain. And then you will get a matrix like this C, and then you have to find the C inverse like this, and then you have to substitute in the formula. So from this part I will write and then explain. I hope it is clear. If you have, I will once again share this link in the meeting chat window. So you can also parallelly keep it open. You can click the link and keep it open. The calculating the C part, I will explain. Actually, when I calculated, I got these values only. There may be slight accuracy approximation difference will be there, but I got these values only when I calculated. Maybe minor calculation difference can come. So if you are looking for C1 as 0.166 and then minus 0.192 as given in the link, then it is actually coming as 0.1704 and 0.186 and minus 0.186, 1.349. This 1.349 came as it is for me also. So the C2 value.
Ma'am, that Ni value for first matrix is 4, no ma'am? And then for second it is 3, that only, no ma'am?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
And then for C2, I got as 0.253. Instead, it is given 0.259. And then minus 0.286. This is minus 0.289. Then 2.14. Yeah, here also it is 2.142. So C2, it is almost exactly the same. For C1, this value is coming correctly for me. And here a minor calculation difference is there. Because when we take more values after the decimal point, the value changes. So this value changes, okay? So I will calculate the C of R comma S. This is equal to 1 by N into sigma I equal to 1 to G. G is number of groups, so I can write it as 1 to 2 classes, and then Ni into Ci of R comma S. So this is what the C matrix that we are going to calculate. This is C1 and C2. Ni is 4 and 7. So first time it will be 1 by 7 into 3 into this matrix. And in this matrix, first element I will substitute. What I will do is, we have to calculate for 4 elements. Since this is 2 cross 2 matrix, you will be getting 4 elements for the C cross S. You will be getting 4 elements for the C cross S. So what I will do is, I will calculate separately and then put it in this matrix form. Okay. So first, we will do for 1 for this element. First, let us take this element 4 by 7 into 0.1704 plus, here there is a sigma, so I am writing plus, Ni will be 3 by 7 into this first element I am taking 0.253 and that will be 0.205. Okay. Next will be 4 by 7 into this minus 0.186, and this I will be writing only once because twice it is repeating. Similarly, there also it is repeating same. Okay. Minus 0.186 plus 3 by 7 into minus 0.289. So this will be minus 0.230, and for the next one also it will be the same. So now we'll go for the last element. 4 by 7 into 1.349 plus 3 by 7 into 2.14 as it is mentioned in the link, it is 2.142 and this will give 1.689. So this is my C matrix now. I have to formulate the C matrix with these values 0.205 minus 230 minus 0.230 and then 1.689. This is C and then I have to find C inverse. I have to find C inverse. I have to find inverse of this matrix C inverse and that C inverse I have to substitute in the main formula. Okay. So this is the covariance matrix for first group and this is the covariance matrix for the second group. That means variance, I think you know. Variance means how far each element is varying from the mean. So what we have done initially is the mean corrected data for every group. We have taken each element for the each feature row wise. We have taken both the features. We have subtracted from the mean. So that gives you the variance. And since you are having multiple features, we are going to find the with respect to all the features how they are varying from the mean. So we are calling it as a covariance matrix. Okay. As we have given the formula earlier, the covariance matrix. Now this is C. I will write C inverse and then I will show you how to substitute in the main formula. Okay.
Okay, Jacob will help in that.
Yes.
I'll say I'm not sure. No, I have classes and then I work also. Yeah. Bye bye.
Okay, up to this you have understood. I think you can keep the link open and then check the rest of the statements. I'll take another 5 more minutes and finish it off. So C inverse will be 5.745. I think this dot sometimes may not be seen, so I'm writing more clearly. 0.791, 0.791, and then 0.701. So this is C inverse.
Excuse me.
Yes.
For our data, it will vary, no, ma'am. Like
Yes,
I
ma'am.
got 4.2315. Our values, it will vary, no, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible. Tell me.
Our C is different, no, ma'am. Like 0.205 and 0.230. Little variation is there. Based on the C inverse will also vary, no, ma'am. I just said I got 4.2315, 0.5762, and then it varied a lot actually. I directly put in calculator.
Okay. For this C matrix, you are getting a different C inverse.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else is getting a different value for C inverse? maybe slight difference will come. What value you got, Priya? Here?
4.2315. Like lot of variation is there. 0.5762 for the second entry, and then 0.5762 for the third entry, and then 0.5135.
Okay. Because this is the value that I got when I did the C inverse. Maybe I will check it again.
I will check again.
Yeah, maybe someone else also can check and tell. Okay, let us calculate the probability of the classes. P of I equal to Ni by total. So for the first class, it will be 4 by 7. And for the second class, it is 3 by 7. So that is 0.5714 and then 0.429. Now what we have to do is we have to substitute in the formula that Fi equal to mu I into C inverse into xk of t minus half mu I C inverse mu I transpose plus ln of Pi. This is the formula. Now what we have to do is,
Ma'am,
yeah,
initially only slight variation, ma'am. I think I put a wrong value initially. Now it is coming like 5.7577 and then 0.784, 0.6988.
okay, fine,
Slight
fine.
variation is only there.
Okay, 0.69 and 0.7 we can consider like that. 0.745 you are getting 0.76 something. Okay, fine. All that is negligible. We can just assume that also as the correct value. So as of now, I will carry out with this value only. So now, because I've done the calculation for this, so now for this C inverse, you will substitute here. First of all, we have to find, given a particular element, you have been given one element and we have to find whether this belongs to which class or not. I think initially in the question it is mentioned. If you have scrolled up, you can find the new chip ring have curvature 2.81 and then diameter will be 5.46. So for this set of value, to which class it will belong to? That means how far this will be varying from the two classes based on these features. Okay. So first we have to find the likelihood of this particular object belonging to class 1. Then we have to find the likelihood that it belongs to the class 2. So for that, you have to write F1 for class 1 and then mu1, you have to put the class mean what is being calculated initially. C1 is common. In the place of xk, you have to substitute this like like this way, column wise. It is a column vector you have to write instead of a row vector. You write it as a column vector minus half mu I. Once again the mu1 and the same C inverse and then the same. This mu I transpose you have to put it here plus for this 0.5714 the ln value you have to find and put it here. So it will be a very big calculation. So the mu1 is 3 point, as you can see. I will share the screen once again and I will explain. Okay, the substitution is not shown here. Okay, I will write it. I will do one thing. First, I will show it for the element for the existing in the table. If you want, you can verify for any of the 7 elements already given in the feature set. You can take and then test it. Now for this particular value, I will just write it. For the first class, it is 3.05, 6.38. And then the C matrix, we have C inverse matrix, we have just now calculated 5.745, 0.791, 0.791, 0.701. And then I will be substituting this value 2.81 and then 5.46 minus half into once again this matrix 3.05 and 6.38, then C inverse, once again this matrix will come, and then this one transpose this matrix you have to write transpose for the logarithmic value ln of the first class, the value I am writing sub directly. It is coming as minus 0.5596. So if I calculate the value, I am getting as 44.049. Similarly, if I substitute second class mean here and then second class mean here and then transpose, for the second class I am getting a value 44.085. Okay, so it actually by looking at the last 2 decimal digits, we can assume that the particular bolt will belong to the second class. Class 2 is the one to be predicted. Okay. For the first class, it is giving a value 44.049. For the second class, it is giving 44.085. So here it is actually marginally difference is coming. Whereas if you take some other value, you may get a high difference between both the classes where you can tell the probability value based on that very quickly. I will share this Excel sheet also where the values are tabulated. You can also see you can see in the link. You can download this worksheet companion. So if you click this, you will get this worksheet. All these calculations are done in this worksheet that you will get it. Okay, so you can download and then change the values and observe how the class being predicted is changing. So you can try this with a different x1 and x2 and then see how the prediction changes. Okay, So we'll stop with this here. Sorry, I took more time, so we could not do PCA today. I will try to do it in the next class later. And Thursday is a holiday for Sankranti. So very happy Sankranti to all.